Right, hello everybody. My name is Dave Pimm, and I've come to you today from the University of Suffolk in the UK, where I lecture on the BA Honours Computer Games Design degree course. I'm sorry, Mr. Cameraman, I walk around quite a lot. I do apologise, make your life hard. Before working in education, I worked in the games industry on AAA projects and indie titles, and I did that for about 12 years. I went in as an artist back in the days when we were general artists, and we did the characters, the environments, the vehicles, the animations, the whole lot, the old days. Then I moved into design and writing and became a creative director. I'm going to be talking about emotions today, narrative emotions. Before you can move somebody else, you've got to move yourself. That's the first thing we need to know as a writer. You've got to make yourself cry like a girl. You've got to make yourself laugh. You've got to make yourself tremble. You've got to get the hairs on the back of your neck, down your arms, standing up. Which means that today I'm taking you on an emotional journey for the next 45, 50 minutes. There is going to be mature content. Yes, you will say. And I might even swear. Can you imagine? There might be some simulated blood. There might be some uncomfortable images, some very peculiar things. There might be even a little bit of nudity. We're not talking Game of Thrones, but a little bit of nudity. So I'd like to give you 1 minute to leave the room if you are not comfortable with any of this. And as it happens, 1 minute is precisely however long it takes Pancake the kitten to make his bed. Alan, if we may have the kitten. Thank you very much. Your minute starts now. Poke it out. Oh, I could have lasered him. Should we just do that for 45 minutes? Today, I can see you're all here. Good, 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 good. And if anyone walks in now, too late. We've had the warning. There's tits, okay? Finding emotion triggers, that's the first thing we're going to be talking about today. What they are, how we find them, how to put them together to create a narrative structure. We need to talk a little bit about characters because so many emotions come through characters. So I'll talk about how to create a character-player bond, and then how to pump those emotions through. And then creating the promise of emotions. So to begin, I need to take you back 10 years. 10 years ago, I was working at Free Radical Design as an environment artist. And in the evenings and at weekends, I was learning to be a writer. And I did the right thing. I joined a writers' forum. That was the first thing I did. And I was so fortunate that there was a wonderful literary agent there who took me under his wing, and he nurtured me, and he changed my life. Honestly, if it wasn't for him, I would not be standing here now. And this thing I'm going to show you now in particular was the life-changing moment for me. He said to me, as a writer, Dave, your only job is to make people think or to elicit emotional responses. And of the two, the emotional responses are the more visceral. So in that one moment, I understood what all of those techniques were for. All of the foreshadowing I've been learning, all of the character arcs, all of the act structure, everything was about making people feel stuff. I'm not going to be talking about the thinking today. If you've got some message, something you want to say about what it's like to be a human, something about life and death, that's entirely up to you, that's fine. I'm going to be focused on the emotional stuff. And it's the easiest thing to test for. You want to find out if you can write, Write, give it to someone, see if they cry, see if they laugh. It's the easiest thing to test for. Takes a little bit of practice. 5 years after this, lots of practice, lots of writing, lots of hanging out, lots of reading, lots of talking to writers. I'd had a couple of games released as creative director, and these are the player comments. So this is 5 years after the mentor told me this. So this is what players said. I felt as if I was in a land of my dreams or memories in places that are familiar to me but long forgotten. The game has affected me very deeply. We can do this with narrative. We can affect people very deeply. Make no mistake about it. This is something we can do. There are poignant scenes that drew me in emotionally, something that does not usually happen while gaming. In the end, I cared about the outcome and the characters, hence we need to talk a little bit about characters. It's about caring about them. I actually got emotional at the end of a story. The meaning of the story touched me. My demographic for this, by the way, was the middle-aged female demographic, mainly Americans. Yeah. I have been gaming for years, and this game blew me away. And I want to show you this because we blow people away. It's not just a case of making someone feel a little bit of an emotional tingle. We are going for emotional orgasms, my friends. That's what we're going for. That is our duty. People come to us because they really, really, really want emotions. Now, working with students, I try and do narrative with them, and they have little characters kicking each other a bit and poking them. No, come on, let's get those things going, let's get those emotions going. First thing then is to know your audience. So working with the middle-aged female demographic, the first thing I do is I go to their forums, I hang out with them, secretly lurking around in the background. I play the games they're playing. I make a list of the things they like, a list of the things they hate. I listen to their music. I watch their films. Yeah? Different people want different things. We're all humans. We're big bags of emotions. That's what we are as human beings. We've got all the emotions inside of us, and they need to be triggered. We need to figure out which of those emotions should be triggered. Not everybody wants the same thing. So the first thing to remember, our games are for human beings. Human beings are emotional vacuum cleaners. They crave emotional stimulation. Our games are not for all humans. That means you can piss people off. And you should be pissing a lot of people off. If you are really going to move somebody deeply and powerfully, then you've got to accept that anybody who comes to this and they don't want those emotions, they're going to be upset. The more intense the emotions, the more you're going to really upset some people. So you must not be scared. If your managing director comes over to you and says, oh, these people don't like your game, you just show them, these people absolutely love it. Yeah? If you want to please everybody, you can only be generic. Different people enjoy different emotions. Emotions need to be triggered. Which is where we shall begin. Emotion triggers. I keep a library of anything that moves me. And you should do the same. Anything in day-to-day life, if something makes you feel something, you log it. It could be a sketch, it could be an image you found on the internet. I've got a huge library, hundreds, if not thousands, probably thousands of images that in some way make me feel something, anything. You can make a few words, write a few words, just a few sketches, anything. You've got to capture whatever it is that makes you feel something, and then analyze it. I brought in a few images from my library today. I'm going to show you one now, and I'll just give you a few seconds to digest it, so get ready. I did warn you at the beginning. I'm not going to push you too far, you're okay. I want you just to take it in, see if it makes you feel anything. If you don't feel anything, that's fine. We're all different. And if you do, see if you can figure out where the emotions are coming from. So what's going on there? Which bits are creating a feeling inside you? What is that feeling? And which bits are unnecessary? Finding those triggers. That's kind of the most important part of our job. Oh, this is a saying actors have. Directors don't know what they want, they just know what they don't want. So apologies to everybody here who works under a creative director. I know your pain. We come up to you and we say, that's wrong, please change it, and you hate us. I'm so sorry. Understand, we don't know what we want, but we do know what we don't want. We have a vision. For sure, we have a vision, and we're trying to get to some strange, nebulous place. We don't know exactly what it looks like. We are dealing with thousands upon thousands of components, and we're blending them together as carefully and as controlled as we can. We don't know how it's going to turn out, so please, please forgive us when we come over to you and ask you to change your work. We're not being evil. We're just trying to find something. For example, this is Pierre Mondrian. This is Avant Evening, the Red Tree, painted in 1908. Mondrian was the founder of the style movement, which means for style. So this is 1908. This is the beginning of his journey. He's done representationalism. He can do that. He's trying to find something now. So we can begin to see the cold blue, the scratchy terrain against the red texture of the bark. But you can see he's fascinated by these branches, the way these branches are interweaving and creating these positive and negative spaces. So let's let him carry on with this for 4 years and see where he is in 4 years' time. Okay, he's getting somewhere. 4 years later, this is the apple tree, 1912. And he's forgotten about the background and the scratchy terrain now. He's really interested in these branches and these T-shapes that are coming out and these little fish shapes that are coming out and those cold bleached colors. Yeah, he's getting somewhere. So we give him another couple of years. So 6 years from the red tree to this. And it's called Composition 8. He's even not bothering with the word tree anymore. And he's loving it. He's got those colors down now, and he's got those shapes and those negative spaces that form these positive spaces. All the T's have joined together. There's a few of those little fish shapes in there still, but they're almost gone. That was a 6-year search for him to find that. Now, Hemingway used to refer to it as the truth. Ernest Hemingway. He used to say he was looking for the truth. He would say he would write and write and write. This is, he'd get up in the morning, he'd write and write until he made one true statement. And then he'd get rid of everything that had gone before. He was looking for the truth. And he spoke about it a lot. The perfect observation. The mot juste, the right word, the exact word. Strip away everything that's unnecessary. And some critics did say his work was a little bit too stripped down. But he was trying to find the essence of something. He was trying to find those triggers. This is Hemingway. This is the last book he wrote, A Movable Feast. It's a recounting of his early days as a writer, 1920s in Paris. Beautiful, beautiful book, the last book he wrote. And in this particular scene, he's just met Wyndham Lewis, the founder of the Vorticists. And Hemingway didn't like Wyndham Lewis. So here he is on his walk home, trying to think what he thought about Wyndham Lewis. And he says, "Walking home, I tried to think what he reminded me of, and there were various things. I tried to break his face down and describe it, but I could only get the eyes. Under the black hat, when I had first seen them, the eyes had been those of an unsuccessful rapist." Would you like to see Wyndham Lewis? The eyes of an unsuccessful rapist. Good one, Em. He was a genius. This man was a genius. Every year, my first years come in, and a couple of weeks in, I show them this doll, because they say, "I want a doll in my game," and I say, "That's not good enough. What do you mean?" So I show them this doll, and I ask them to give me descriptive words describing this doll, and they say these words. They say, "It's cute, it's happy, it's cheerful, it's colorful," and so on and so on. Hooray, we're getting somewhere. We're sort of digging a little bit deeper. It's not just a doll. We're trying to find the triggers. And I show them this doll, just to make the point that you can't tell your team you want a doll. You need to go a bit more specific than that. And I say, "Describe this doll for me." And they say, "Oh, Dave, it's sad, it's scary, it's baby, it's morbid, it's scared, it's defensive, it's neglected." So they give me these descriptive words. And then when you put the two side by side, you just realize how stupid it is to ask people for a doll. But then what is cute? I'm just trying to find the right level here. What is cute? If I asked my art team to do something cute, what would they do? As a creative director, my job is to feed every member of the team the emotion triggers and then let them get on with what they do best. Why is the left-hand doll considered cute? What is cute? Well, it's got the childlike qualities. Well, they both have that. So there's obviously something more going on. Cute is also about healthiness, good health, an absence of disease. So you get things like, you'll know Pokemon, I'm sure, the glistening eyes, and the rosy cheeks, the good blood circulation. So now we're beginning to understand why this is cute and the other one isn't. Why is the right-hand doll defensive? It's obviously the posture. It's in a fetal position. And the left one's open, like this, calm and comfortable, defensive. Yeah? So we're suddenly finding really good places to explore, amazing places to find these triggers. Non-verbal communication is amazing for that. I'll talk about that in a minute. Here's another one of a collection from my collection. What's going on here? What's important? What's not important? What's making you feel anything? Are you feeling anything? I love that hand. You can't see what's going on, but it's got very clean fingernails. I've always thought if those fingernails were dirty, it would have been a little bit more powerful. Yeah? We've got some lace in the bottom left-hand corner. Does that add to the feeling? Is it clutter, as Hemingway calls it, or is it important? It's got some real hair. It's got some cracks. If those cracks on the side of the mouth went down instead of across, would that change the feeling? And this is the stuff we have to convey to our teams. As creative directors, this is our job. When I've obviously practiced this presentation a few times with my colleagues, in front of my colleagues, and they kind of all said to me at the end, I thought you were going to tell us all the triggers, Dave. No, sorry. That's why I put that first slide in. You've got to feel this stuff yourselves. You've got to find these things yourselves. I can point you in the right direction, but it's meaningless for me to give you a list. You can't copy and paste this stuff. You've got to feel it before you can use it. So I've made a concession. I've put this slide in. I'm going to show you some really, really good places to find triggers. Children are the easy ones. They're filled with triggers. Their naivety, and their enthusiasm, their energy and boundless wonder. Whether they're enthusiastically collecting worms in the rain or being lined up against a wall and shot, they are very powerful emotion triggers. Find them. NVC, non-verbal communication. You ever stood really close to somebody? Or has anybody ever come up to you and invaded your personal space? Yeah? Yeah? Especially if you've got bad breath. Or someone stands behind you, and we don't come out the other side. Hello? So there's so much stuff in there in the NVC, non-verbal communication. I use it all the time, so powerful. Power struggles between characters, and even between characters and environments, are amazing, and there's a whole ton of triggers you can use. Simple little things. Some of those are the NVC. Someone towering over somebody else, or if you're talking to a child, you get down like that, so you want to stay on my level. So this is all about creating a balance of power or removing power from somebody else. Sex and nudity, of course, but it does not have to be literal. We're looking for the triggers. Things like orifices are amazing. You know the work of Hans-Ruedi Giger, perhaps, from Alien. Sticks orifices everywhere, but they're entrances to spaceships. So just, even subliminally, you can just secretly put this stuff into your work. Intimacy and vulnerability. Think about how the relationship really changes with nudity. In a loving relationship, it can be wonderful. In a non-loving relationship, not so. There's no accident that in Psycho, Marion Crane was having a shower when she was murdered. It was to build up this vulnerability. And gifts. Next time you watch a film, read a book, look out for the gifts. Millions of them. This is a big stream of gifts. And where the triggers are with gifts, it's the amount of sacrifice. If you've seen Pulp Fiction, Butch's pocket watch that went through from his grandfather to his father, all through down the years, the sacrifices they made to get him this watch. So gifts are really about sacrifices. Yeah, if you've seen a film, you're laughing. I get you. And rejection. It's brilliant. A little child comes up to you with a gift. I spent 10 years making this for you, Daddy. It's rubbish. Good, yeah? Good, powerful stuff. My poor son, I tell you. He hates Christmas. I'm joking, of course. And we leave space. We leave this space. It's really nice for the player to take some ownership of your game. It's an interactive experience. It's not a book. It's an interactive experience. So we throw in those triggers, and we leave them some space to make it personal to them. They will fill it in. If you say your character's does this, that, and the other. They'll give you a carrot with 2 arms and 2 legs. They'll do all that work for you. Okay, they'll make a default decision. So we can really focus on those triggers and leave a bit of space. So that's emotion triggers, what they are, how to find them, and why they're important. Let's stick them together. Writers, I'd be interested, just to show me some hands here. Has anybody heard of emotional topography? Is this something you've heard of before? A few of you? Chris, that's only because you've been in my lectures, mate. Okay, writers refer to an emotional topography. It just means a landscape of emotions. It's like the roller coaster ride of emotions. It looks like this. Robert McKee, who wrote a lot about act structure, talks about these positive and negative switches. It was really bizarre to me that this isn't a part of the games industry. I mean, you're asking your team to make some art assets, perhaps, make a little bit of design in there. They surely want to know where you are on this path. I mean, I know it's a little bit different because we've got interactive experiences. I get that. I'm showing a linear experience here. But you still have some idea of where the player's going to be at any one point. You control the universe. And we take our players through these switches. We call them reversals. I'm sure you've heard of reversals. Positive and negative switches. For example, Jane Eyre, she's the happiest she's ever been. Right up here, she's getting married to Mr. Rochester after the entire novel. And finally, she's standing at the altar. So all as your designer brain do, beats her with a freaking stick, yeah? In come the 2 men. Oh, he's already married. Oh, destroy her. That's basically every soap opera, every dramatic thing you've ever watched, is that we build characters up and we relish destruction. We destroy them, we beat them until they bleed. So this is the emotional topography. It sounds a bit odd, the idea of the negative emotional responses. Why would you want anybody ever to feel a negative emotional response? It's different. It's not like that. Those negative emotional responses are happening in a fictional universe. The player knows in some part of their brain that they're safe. They are sitting down in a house and no one's getting hurt. It's very different if you watch the news because this is real hurt. And this is called dual response theory. We have a perceived response, so we go, that's sad. And we have an actual response. It's received vicariously. That means we receive it knowing we're safe and nobody's hurt. And during that process, the emotion gets transformed. So a perceived emotion might be, that was sad. But the actual feeling, when it's received vicariously, is something more akin to a blitheness or a romantic feeling. So that's why we talk about the positive and negative emotions. That's in your fictional world. From the player's point of view, they're all good. Yeah, I mean, honestly, guys, you know this. Game design is the hardest thing in the world. We do what all of the creative people do, rolled in one. It's really freaking hard. We don't just have the narrative topology to control. We have the fun, the ups and downs of the fun as well. Imagine this, because we have fun emotions and narrative emotions. Imagine this. This is a physical task here. The player has been invited to click 100 times in 30 seconds, yeah? And this is going to result in fun emotions. So it's a physical challenge. We could say it's speed, and it's maybe perhaps an endurance. Clicking for 30 seconds maybe requires a little bit of endurance, okay? If they're successful, that tension builds and builds and builds and builds. They finally do it, and it's expressed as fiero. Yeah, that mixture of pride and triumph. That's a fun emotion. That feels good. That's why we play. That's why we enjoy challenges and getting games to do that. Okay? So let's stick some narrative on there. Let's put some narrative emotions as well. How about this? How about we're clicking and our girl's skipping? Yay! You know, skipping 100 times in 30 seconds. Wonderful. So that fiero is now experienced in time with sort of the joy of her skipping. Let's do something else. Let's burn her. So let's say those first 50 clicks are stripping her naked, ripping her clothes off, and the next 50 clicks are striking your flint, trying to get this damp firewood and kindling to light. Now what happens at that point of fiero? That fun emotion still exists, an accomplishment, overcoming a challenge, but it's now mixed in with a narrative emotion, and quite a dark one too. So in that moment of yes, her skin blisters, and her hair catches fire. And this is what I discovered the great writers were doing. And I've seen many GDC conference talks where narrative designers talk about the holy grail of making people cry, of getting those strong emotions. No, you need maybe 6 months to get good at that. The rest of your life is putting these things together in interesting ways to create complex emotions, to make people feel things deeply. We don't understand, we're not simple emotions. That's when the journey begins, when you've got the triggers down and you can make people feel a whole array of emotions and powerful ones. Then the journey begins, and it never ever gets boring. It's so exciting. I think of it as like a recipe. You know, a great chef is building in textures and taste and smells and colors, and he doesn't know what he's going to get. Or she, I'm so sorry. Put them together, see what happens, come out. Yeah, that works, or that's horrible. Same for us. I'm going to throw in a bowl of disgust and a little spoonful of Fiero in there, and a clove of curiosity, and a little pinch of lust, and a little bit of dashed wonder in there, and an olive of terror. It's great fun. I mean, it never gets boring. You're balancing all these emotions, throwing them all in and see what happens. It's fantastic, and people love it. Players love it. They really feel things deeply. Running through your narrative, because we're talking about how to put a narrative together, running through your narrative of the characters. Why is that? Well, because we're humans, yeah? They're substitute humans. Think of the things that we can feel between ourselves. People can hate each other so much that they will kill. People can love other people so much that they will give up their lives for them. Really, really powerful stuff. Which is why characters run through the heart of a narrative. We engage with them, we recognize them. And they become like a pipeline, a conduit. So we build up this connection between the player and the character, make a nice, strong connection, and start pumping those emotions through, and we'll feel them vicariously and very powerfully. They're not real. You can do stuff to them. We're not designed to entertain. Well, I obviously am, because I'm here. But generally speaking, humans aren't designed to entertain. Your characters are. We draw from the real life because that's where the player lives. They understand things in those terms. But we do not copy real life because this is an entertainment. I got a bit carried away then because our students never get that. They always tell me, oh, the player's got tuberculosis. And I'm saying, really? Do you mean the character? I don't want to play a game now, get tuberculosis. It's terrible. Make me care. Yeah, we want to care, so we're building this pipeline, we're building this connection between the player and the characters. And we know this. What we like about characters is that they're suffering. We make their lives hell. But that's not enough. There's nothing worse than seeing someone going, oh, my life's crap. Oh, God. Yeah, there's a missing ingredient there. They've got to struggle. That's the most important thing to remember when designing characters. To create a bond, which is what they're for, is that we make them suffer and we make them struggle. They are proactive. Protagonist literally means first combatant. The word protagonist implies that conflict. So that conflict is creating these reversals, this change of state in the character throughout the narrative. Robert McKee said nothing moves forward except through conflict. And Michael Legat said, plot arises out of characters and their reaction to crises. So it's a good place to begin is with your characters, creating these character arcs, getting that bond between them and the real human beings. Superman would have been crap if he was invulnerable, wouldn't he? Nothing hurts me, yeah? This is from Superman 2. Zod, his antagonist, says, this Superman is nothing of the kind. I have discovered his weakness. Some terrible impressions. Yes, I know I told you I was terrible. That was a woman. Yes, he cares. He actually cares about these people, these Earth people. You've got to slip into Flash Gordon when you do that. And then later on, Zod said, he ran in fear from us. And Lois says, he'll be back. As long as he's alive, we'll try again. All my women sound the same. Suffer and struggle, suffer and struggle. We love it. We connect. Now we've got this pipeline and start pumping stuff through. Yes, make people feel things. We can create empathy which is when we understand and share someone's motivation. We feel with them. Or we can create sympathy. This is where we understand the motivation and feel for them. So it's about that connection of motivation. In a few seconds, just getting Alan ready. In a few seconds, I'm going to show you a clip from one of my games. It's a player playing one of my games having emotional orgasms. Yay! And I'm using empathy. So what I've done is I've made a female protagonist, mid-20s, for my female players, thrown her into this fantasy world of a lost town of a cyclops, and everyone's vanished, and she's trying to find a boyfriend and get out. And there's this door, and she's trying to get through the door. And it's guarded by this cyclopean head. And he's the idiot, he's the fool, he won't let her through. So I thought, right, let's have a bit of fun here. My player. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make her really stubborn and give her a meaningless task. You know, not saying anything about hidden object puzzle adventure games. Going to give her a meaningless task. So he says, well, you want to come through my door? Go and get me a chocolate. I thought, that's great, chocolate. What? Really? Sure? Yeah, have a chocolate, my favourite chocolate, okay. So off she goes, 15 minutes later. Has some fun, it's fun puzzles, not making it boring. It's just a meaningless task. Comes back, here's your chocolate, Mr. C ahead, let me through. He goes, actually, go and bring me my new favourite chocolate. Really? It's great, just building the tension, building that tension, because what happens when we get a lot of tension? We can get a lot of that, yeah? Build, and then you just build it up to this, yes, okay? So off player goes again, 20 minutes later, right, come on, yeah. Have that, yeah? Now open the door. Let's have a bit of fun with her. So he then says, now go and get me another chocolate, yeah? I know what's in the player's mind. I know I've got her exactly where I freaking want her. She is coming back, and in her mind she's saying, he'd better not ask me for another chocolate. So I thought, let's have some fun with her, okay? Okay, Alan, if you'd like to, thank you very much.
Hilarious. Oh, I love him. Okay, here's your chocolate. Don't give me more chocolate nonsense.
Oh, yes. Very good. Excellent.
You ready?
Now, one last chocolate.
Oh my god!
True favorite. Go get me a...
I will not! My Tom is out there somewhere in goodness knows what kind of state. The sun is setting, and I have no intention of spending the next 300 years locked up with the likes of you. Oh, I'm so dumb that I scurry around wiping your noses, tidying your messes, running your pointless errands. And who's there to help me? Who can I turn to when I need help? Where's my shoulder to cry on? You tell me I will not fetch you another chocolate. You open these doors right now!
Oh, that told you, Cargan.
Finally! A character who just...
Empathy.
Oh, that was awesome!
Emotional orgasm.
Tell stuff like, why am I so stupid? Did I run all your pointless errands? Oh my god! Just let me through! I'm just cleaning up all your messes and there's no one here to help me, so just open the stupid door. That was awesome. Oh.
Oh, so you build attention. Get the player exactly where you want them. If you know where they are, you can do anything to them. It's fantastic. And I'll tell you something, it actually starts to feel like cheating after a while. It's so easy. To get those deep emotions is a lifetime's journey, but getting those kind of reactions isn't that difficult if you're in control. Never think of your characters in terms of good and evil. That is destructive. You think in terms of motivations. And I'll tell you why. Because it creates so much wonderful opportunity for interesting relationships. If you think in terms of good and evil, you are missing out on a whole bunch of opportunities. So just think of motivations coming into collision. Now, we mentioned thinking earlier. This is an interesting thing. When we just provide the motivations and let the player make up their own mind, this moral judgment comes in. They actually start to get, it's part of the immersion process, the cognitive immersion process. They're making a moral judgment. They're saying, does that character deserve to suffer? And are they struggling enough? You've invited them into an experience to make up their own minds about the characters. This is why we don't talk about good and evil, we just talk about motivations. Oh, this is the Andes crash, 1972. These poor passengers, I think it's flight 7573, crashed into the Andes, and they were stranded there for 72 days. They were suffering. Obviously, they were suffering, and they were struggling like hell. They were trying to get off that mountain. They were trying to get the radio working. They were trying to find some human civilization to get in touch with. They couldn't. They were stranded there. And they ran out of food. They rationed their food. They ran out of food. They started eating bits of leather from the luggage. They tried to eat the stuffing from the chairs. I mean, I can't imagine. I really can't imagine. And finally, they looked at the dead bodies of their friends and said, what are we going to do? They had to turn to cannibalism. This isn't good and evil. We are now going to make a moral judgment. Did they deserve to suffer? Did they deserve then to go to prison for what they did or not? And it's about that word deserve. When you're thinking of character motivations, think about the word deserve. Do they deserve this? And that's what your player's doing when they're making moral judgments. They're thinking, does this character deserve that? We change our characters. The narrative theorist Zvetan Todorov once wrote that all narrative involves a transformation. This is a character change through conflict. And there are different ways of changing characters. Some story models, such as Dramatica, allow for a steadfast character. Now, this is the character, this is from The Fugitive. Dr. Richard Kimball comes in. His life's in equilibrium. He's married. He's got a job. His wife is killed. He is blamed. And he goes on the run, pursued. He's a fugitive. Finally finds the killer, brings him to justice, and he's vindicated. There's a lot of change going on there. His life's up and down like this. It's all the emotional topography, the positive and negative switches. But at the end of it, he doesn't come out with a new view of the universe. So there's a lot of change, but his worldview hasn't changed. And the Hollywood way is this. And it's actually the way I naturally find works for me. I just naturally slip into this anyway. So this is where we change the worldview of a character at the end. And we do it, this is from Contact, this is Ellie Arroway. This is how it happens. We create a want. So this is the superficial journey. So hello, my name's Ellie, and I want to contact alien life. Science is the answer. But we build something into her that is destroying her life, absolutely destroying her life. She never got over her father passing away when she was young. And that's running underneath. She doesn't know this is the thing she's looking for, is some kind of redemption. She doesn't know this. We do, but she doesn't. She knows that she's looking for alien life. So it gets even more complicated. We've got these layers and layers and layers. And by the end, she has changed. Everything about her has changed. It's almost irrelevant whether she finds alien life or not. That wasn't the point of the story. That was a superficial journey. The point of it was that she came to terms and she found peace and no longer blamed herself for the death of her father. So it's that duality, and it's quite difficult to control, but I actually find it a very natural thing to do. Characters changing. That's the Hollywood way. That's your character arc. So the character pursues a goal. That's the conscious goal. There's a flaw that's ruining their life. And that happens subconsciously. Conflict forces the character to recognize their flaw. All justifications are stripped away, and they finally go, aha moment. Oh, that's what I really need. And then there's all that struggling and suffering and all the conflict. Character usually attains their conscious goal, and they deal with their flaw and find that peace, redemption, justice, whatever it is. And that's your character arc. And that's the one that I find works the best, but I don't, both are good. And this is how we structure our story then. Come full circle. How do we structure our narrative? Build in a simple 3-act structure. Don't need to worry too much about that. Just building in these turning points, these big turning points that are changing the character, taking them towards their resolution. So, there I was. I've been writing for a few years. I was doing all this. Got some good short stories out there that were making strong reactions. And I started working on my third full-length manuscript. My first 2 were rubbish. This is my masterpiece. 120,000 words of genius. So I sent the first 3 chapters out to my readers, thinking, yes! And then they got back to me. Behold my genius, this is what he said. The story doesn't feel like it's going anywhere. Pardon? Hang on, that's not right, that's not what's going to happen. Something weird had happened, and I didn't know what had gone on. I could do short stories, but the longer ones weren't working, and I didn't know why. There's lots of emotional stuff in there. Why did you say that? I mentioned this because this was a recurring theme. Several of my readers said exactly this, or to this effect. The story doesn't feel like it's going anywhere. Let's start again then. So I went crying back to my mentor, the literary agent. I just fished. I didn't know what I was looking for. And I said, Peter, would you say that an author's ability to elicit a strong emotional response from the reader is of primary importance? Because that's what I thought was happening. And he changed my life again. What a bastard. He said, yes, but it's also the ability to anticipate and control, as we just saw, that response that really sets a strong writer apart. I didn't really know what he meant by that until I found this. From E.M. Forster's Aspects of a Novel. Story has only one merit, that of making the audience want to know what happens next. And conversely, it can only have one fault, that of making the audience not want to know what happens next. I'm onto something here. That's what my players were saying. What's going on? Forward motion. All you have to do is keep the reader turning a page. It's not just about creating these big emotive hits. It's creating the anticipation of big emotive hits. And that is even possibly more important than actually creating the emotive hits, because they get to the end, and you've gotten to the end, and there's nothing there, and they go, well, I got to the end. So that is really, really, really important, and it took me a little while to learn that. This is what that rising action is. I'm sure you've seen this graph before. That's what a rising action is. I mean, I looked at it before and thought it's a line with some words on it. It probably means that action happens and it rises. Didn't really know what it meant. It means that forward motion, driving and driving and driving and driving and driving. That's what it means. Yeah, Reservoir Dogs. So Mr. Blonde. So in this scene, Mr. Blonde's there in an abandoned warehouse, and he's got a policeman tied up to a chair with tape across his mouth. So Tarantino's a master of this. So what happens? Mr. Blonde says, I'm going to torture you. And he pulls out a cutthroat razor. That's the promise. He's made a promise. You are now on your chair. And yeah, he's in control here. And he doesn't just go in there and torture him, does he? He goes over to the radio, because the promise has now been made. So you can just keep it like that. Yeah. Over to the radio, bit of a dance, takes his time. Just remind you, here's my razor. There's no hurry. It's fantastic. I do this with my students. I'll show you one in a minute. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Not with a razor. I didn't mean that. Don't get the wrong idea. Oh. If you're recording this, don't edit that bit in and put. So this is what suspense is. It's you're making a promise, and then you've got the player exactly where you want them, and you can have fun. Or as Hitchcock said, imagine two people are sitting at a table having breakfast together, and then a bomb blows up. That's a surprise. Or imagine they're having dinner together, and the camera pans down, and we see the bomb. That's suspense. Yeah? There's a bomb! And every pea, a little dip of mayonnaise there. It's all good. Take your time, because that's ticking away. It's brilliant. Brilliant. I've got a name for this. I call them suspense bubbles. I made this up. I needed something. I'm a visual creature. I need to see things in my mind. So I come up with this idea of a suspense bubble which exists between a promise and a delivery. So in this case, you've only got an overarching suspense bubble, which is the beginning of a story. There's an asteroid coming towards the Earth. Tick, 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 tick. There you go. There's your countdown. There's your suspense. Okay. It could be the trains heading towards a cliff. The rail's broken. Tick, 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 tick. Suspense bubbles. I'll tell you why I find that idea so useful. It's because, imagine this. This is a pretty boring scene. It's just a bus driver having a cup of tea. Yeah. So just stick him in a suspense bubble. Let's just say there's a man coming with him towards him with a shotgun and a Doberman. And suddenly he's in a suspense bubble. It's brilliant. And now your players go, oh, every sip of that tea now, that guy's getting closer. And that dog's getting a bit more foamy at its mouth. Yeah? What's the most boring thing we can think of? How about watching paint dry? So let's stick him in a suspense bubble. Let's just stick a poisonous spider towards him. It becomes really easy when you think of it that way. It's critical that you always keep your player in a suspense bubble. Absolutely critical, as I found out to my own cost. Now, it's about that tension is perceived. So it depends on how close the player thinks they are to the delivery. Okay? In this case, in Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, you can clearly see that Boulder is moving fast and it's very close to it, it's on its heels, so that tension is high. Imagine that boulder is 2 miles away, rolling slowly. It's not the same effect, is it? Not really. So we need the player to, if we want to create that tension, or high tension, we need the player to believe that they are close to the delivery. So the thing about suspense bubbles is they have a peak of interest. Oh my God, there's an asteroid coming towards the Earth. And then they sort of tail off pretty quickly. They lose their potency very quickly. So we have to keep reinvigorating them. So 10 minutes later, we have to go, oh my God, don't forget there's an asteroid coming, and now it's broken into 3. Okay, we're making it worse and worse. This is what I do. This is how I plot how I structure my plots. I layer in suspense bubbles. So the player is always in more than one. There's the overarching one. And then you can have more. So you can always ensure you are in complete control of where that big payoff is. And like the emotions you saw a few minutes ago. You're in complete control of it. And this is how that game looked, very much like this. I'm just a visual creature. I find this works for me. And I can just relax there. And I can throw anything I like in. Let's have a cup of tea, yeah? You're in 3 suspense bubbles. This is great. You can't go wrong. We can make a promise, yeah? I mean, obviously, you get a gun out, there's a promise made. But we can also assign promises. We can make our own promises out of anything. Pavlov's dog. You condition the dog. So he rings a bell, and the dog goes, what's that? Huh? And someone brings in some food, and the dog goes, oh, nice. And rings the bell, and the dog goes, oh, hang on a sec. Last time there was hang on, food. Conditioning the dog, it's repetition. Finally, just ring the bell. Don't worry about the food. The dog's going, come on, food. Yeah. So that bell has conditioned the dog. In neuro-linguistic programming, this is called anchoring. Yeah, NLPers, hey, unite. If you want to talk about NLP with me later on, do. There's so much to talk about. So it's about assigning, anchoring a meaning to anything. Silent Hill, the movie. Siren goes off. What's that? What's going on? Into hell. Oh. Next time siren goes off. Oh my God. Now anchored. And in Silent Hill 2, the game. It's the last time I ever played a horror game. I can't deal with it. Just, ambling along the street, minding my own business. Yeah? Walking past some cars. And these freaking zombies came out from underneath the cars. Surrounded me. Horrifying. Absolutely horrifying. So that surprise is suddenly transmuted into this panic reflex action. And all your designer needs to do now is just stick a car in. Genius. You want to create that suspense, that fear, that anticipation, just throw a car in. And oh my God, maybe. So the surprise is then converted to the suspense via repetition. Almost done. This is the one I was talking about. Every year I show this to my students when we talk about character changes and we talk about suspense. This is Jeff Goldblum from The Fly, Seth Brundle. And throughout the course of the movie, he transforms. And I show exactly this slide to my students every year. And I sit back and I just hold the moment and watch them. It's the one time I can guarantee they are silent and their mouths are open. I can guarantee it every year. So this is what I do with them. I'll just take the time. And they love it. They're dead silent. Yeah. Good film, good film. And I found that word in one book, hiding away in one book, the idea of the dreadful truth, the awful truth. So suspense is really maximized if you can just think of it in terms of a promise of something dreadful. So a recap. So we build a library of emotion triggers, we capture them, we throw them together like a chef. Let the player make it personal to themselves, unique meaning. Make sure our characters have a strong bond with the player, and then pump the emotions through. And create the anticipation of emotional responses. I'd like to say thank you, and I'd like to thank you very much for having me today. And also, it's a personal journey. And it's just so nice for me to, it's a freaking lonely job. You spend most of your life in your head. So thank you very much for having me, and I hope you all have a wonderful journey of your own. Thank you.